Hello, and welcome to this new YouTube channel. I've decided to start a YouTube channel in order to be able to reach those folks who may not be on Facebook and may not be getting the current broadcasts that are going out live uh, and may not want to get onto Facebook. I completely understand where you're coming from, by the way. So in order to be able to reach you as well, I'll be adding YouTube to the way that I'm broadcasting. Um, and in order to get that started, I figured I would not do the entire service from this morning that was live streamed, but that I would give a sermon. I would give you the sermon. The gospel today was the blind man being made to see in the Gospel of John, and you can go to the website for the church, the parish of Halliburton .org website, and on that site you'll be able to get both the liturgy for the day, which has all of the prayers that we prayed, but as well you'll be able to get the readings. So it's the reading of Jesus making the blind man see in the Gospel of John. And he main testimony, his confession, the thing that he says again and again is, I once was blind, but now I see. I was blind, and now I see. That's his testimony whenever he's questioned by the Pharisees. And the way that he comes to see is that as we know, and as the Pharisees find out, Jesus spits in mud and rubs it together and wipes it in the man's eyes and tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam, and he does that, and then he sees. He does all this on the Sabbath. Now, I'm going to offer the same public warning that I offered on YouTube. Do not spit in mud and wipe it in each other's eyes. Don't do it. Not now. Especially not now, but not ever, really. Let's be frank. It's not a good way to follow Jesus. Follow him at a comfortable distance on this one, please. But we don't need to follow Jesus in spitting in each other's eyes. We do, I think, have an opportunity to think about this notion of being blind and now seeing, because there were many, many things that we were once blind to that we now see as a result of what we are experiencing. The first is that myriads of people who do not receive sick pay, who do not who do not receive a pay for standard of living. Their pay is not sufficient. Minimum wage workers, a lot of them. Many of these folks and folks in other kinds of financial constraints are the people who are really among the very most essential on the front lines in all of this. I'm talking about people like the people who stock shelves, the people who are at the checkout line, the people who are driving truck, the people who are making deliveries. These folks, these people are necessary, essential for us to be able to sustain ourselves during this. And we, more often than not, have not been willing to see them. We do things like fight against minimum wage increase and living wage standards. So we were blind to that before, but now we see. We were blind to the effects of a society that utilizes the ability to accumulate wealth as a standard for success. Okay? The effects of that we did not perceive, we could not see until this crisis, when we saw them. We saw that the very first instinct of many of us was to go out and procure security for the cleanliness of our rectal area, let's be frank, than we were for establishing that everybody had enough. We were blind to that reality, but now we see. It's not all awful stuff that we see. We might not like that we see these things, but it's not all that way. Some of the stuff that we are now seeing, that we are now not blind to, offers a great deal of hope for our future. We see in this that we are able to make sacrifices, large, large sacrifices. And while many of us are a little slower to come to the table on this, and I do encourage anybody who happens to be watching this to please abide by public health standards and suggestions, be serious and take this as an obligation for yourselves. Follow what is being asked of you. Um, uh, because the sacrifices that we are making are substantial, and they are the exact kind of substantial sacrifices that would be necessary to have to address the myriad of problems that await us when we all leave our houses again. You know, there's a lot of stuff that is happening in our world in our time, and we never thought that we could really do anything about it, I think, which is why we haven't done stuff about this, the myriads of things that there is things to do about. We know that we can sacrifice like that now, which means if we can do it now, we can do it then. We can go forward. We can do better. We know that we can do that. We were blind to that reality, but now we see. We were blind to the reality that when the vulnerable among us are left vulnerable, then we all become vulnerable. We were blind to that reality, but now we see. We were blind to the idea that our material possessions, the things that we are able to procure, to hoard maybe, are the things that will provide us comfort and can provide us comfort. We now see that it is not the toilet paper we may have stockpiled, but the relationships that we have stockpiled that are sustaining us in this time. It is the relationships that are getting us through this. We were blind to that reality, but now we see. And finally, as the church, we have been able to see that we are the church, no matter where we are, no matter what happens. We are the church so long as our being, as our focus, as our sense of connection with one another and with everything is found in Christ, where when we are in that place, my friends, we are the church. Nothing can bring us down. And we've seen that. We've seen that. Our institutional anxieties sometimes blind us to that reality, but we now see. We have seen that COVID-19 can't get us down, and so, my friends, neither can Closure 2040. We are the church, we are here, and we are thriving. The Spirit is moving. All of this is evidence of God at work for me. This is where I am seeing God in this moment. This is how my eyes have been opened, and I hope your eyes have been opened as well. And this is where I find God's judgment. You know, people in times like this, and indeed in this time, some will equate the notion of the sickness with the wrath of God. And I don't see that. I don't see it that way. I see God's judgment found in the opening of our eyes, not in the event that precipitated the opening of our eyes. In the same way that God's judgment is not found in the blindness of the man, but is found in the opening up of the blindness. That's where I see God. That's where I find Christ. That is what I understand God's judgment to be. The opening of our eyes to see the realities of our lives. And they are on bare display here. And we have an opportunity to move forward, just like the man, to walk forward, testifying to the things that we were blind to and what we now see. And when we come back from this, my friends, I guarantee you that just as we find in our gospel today, there will be Pharisees who are trying to tell us that we have not seen what we have seen and that we are still blind. But we have seen it, we're not blind, and they cannot make us be blind again. Not without our willing participation. Remember what you have seen in the wilderness, my friends. Remember the first sight we took on these things, so that when we come back, we are still people who see and not blind, carrying blind, carrying blind, carrying forward. For the power of the sight, for the opening of our eyes, and for the hope that comes from that. I say thanks be to God. Oh, and really, don't spit in each other's eyes.